Welcome. Tonight we have Kathy Bowden from University Lutheran Church in Norman. And what is the name of your organization that you have, Kathy? Start us out.
We densify foam in the name of Churches Caring for Creation. And this is a conglomeration of churches here in the Norman area, and 7 or 8 of us, and we just enjoy working with each other in green issues.
So how did you first get interested in environmental stewardship? Is that something you've been interested in for a long time? Is it a more recent thing?
I was teaching elementary school the year before the first Earth Day happened nationally. And my class was so jazzed for green and being green, they wanted to have their own Earth Day in 1970.
Wow.
And that's what we did. And ever since then, I've just been a green person. We recycle. I have compost piles. We garden. We work with others to keep things out of the landfill. And I've just always been interested in this. How we got to styrofoam is another subject altogether. At our church, we offer a breakfast after our early service. And in the early service and all services, we pray for creation. We pray that God blesses creation. And if the farmers need rain, we pray for it. If it's too wet, we pray that it stops. If it's too hot or too cold or whatever, we pray for creation every Sunday. And then we go out and have our fellowship breakfast. And within a half hour of that very earnest prayer, we had 60-gallon container full of styrofoam. And that was just, that went over the hypocrisy edge for me. And I mentioned to several friends, and they said, "You're right." And then all of us went to our council meeting, and the church council said, "You're absolutely right. We need to do better. Congratulations, you're the new environmental stewardship chair." And that's how all this began. Simply because we were throwing away too much stuff at church, and we wanted to do better.
Okay, so it sounded like, was this initially tied to your faith? Just sort of,
well, yes,
a call to care for creation,
right? Because we believe that God created everything, and He created everything before He created humans, and He created humans specifically to take care of all that He had created. And we weren't doing a good job of taking care of creation. And it's all very biblical, and it comes right out of church, and that's how we got started with styrofoam.
Okay. And I kind of want to have it's one of my later ideas for our program is to have different denominations speak on what's their denominational statement around creation care.
Mm-hmm.
Because most denominations do have and lots of interfaith partners tend to have a statement around that, but I think what does that look like? I think is how, that can look like a whole bunch of different things when you're going down to each congregation or each community will look a little bit different. So what kind of made you feel like, well, I guess you did say it was the styrofoam issue, but I mean, do you feel that because of that call, biblical or otherwise, that faith communities should be at the forefront of this type of action?
Yes, individually and collectively.
Mm-hmm.
Individuals need to decide or come to grips with the fact that over 100 years ago, it was already apparent that humans were having a negative impact on the environment by what they were using in terms of fuel, fossil fuels, and things like that. 30 years ago or more, 50 years ago, Al Gore was in the middle of all of it. And He called attention to the fact that we needed to make changes in our carbon emissions and to live a greener lifestyle. And it's just building, and it's getting worse and worse. Uh, However, there are things happening that are good, like wind power, solar power, hydroelectric power producing electricity, and there can be ways to be more effective. But the thing is, it, coming up on election time here, and I'm not going to get political, but everyone needs to take a look at what their candidates' positions are as far as being green and environmentally sound. And if they agree with your opinion, fine. But if they don't agree, maybe you need to consider some other candidate. And it is not only an individual's prerogative to recycle and to compost and to stop buying stuff. How did we ever get to the point where we need so much stuff? And that, to get rid of it, it has to go somewhere. And to the landfill is one of the places, and we don't need to fill up the landfill with things that we really just didn't need in the first place. I always say about styrofoam, if you don't want to recycle styrofoam, don't take it home from the restaurant. Don't take it home from the convenience store where you get a large drink late in the afternoon to get through the rest of the day. Just don't take it home if you don't want to recycle it, because that's the only way around it.
Yes. And then also taking into consideration everything that goes into making those products as well.
Absolutely.
All the water and just everything, all of the things that go into that process that are used resources. And then what happens to it afterwards, all for like that half hour, 45 minutes that you have a cold beverage. I am the person who brings my own reusable. I'm a soda addict. So I'm not saying that you don't have to drink your soda, but I carry that with me wherever I go. In fact, literally an hour ago, I had to go to a meeting, and I had set it on top of my car, and of course drove away. And I heard the crash. And, like, I pulled around the block, and I'm like underneath the cars, looking for it. And I'm sure people thought I was crazy, but the cup is very important to me. I reuse it constantly. Anyways,
we do something as far as takeout containers are concerned. You know how fun it is to walk into a restaurant with a bag that you're taking a gift to someone in, and it has tissue coming out the top and streamers and whatever, and you walk through the place and people say, oh, they must be having a party. That looks like fun. Well, I carry one into restaurants that has an old Tupperware container in it, and so I can take my scraps home or leftovers home in my own container that I will wash when I'm through with it and reuse it again. But you have to remember to take your bag in with you. That's the learning curve on that.
Yes, I've been doing that. And a related story, I did that at a restaurant a couple of months ago, and I didn't remember to bring it in. So I walked out to the car, got it, brought it back in. And another woman at a table nearby ours went and did the same thing. And as she was walking out, she said, "Thank you for doing that. It gave me the courage to go out and get my own container." And so I think on a similar level, that's kind of why I think faith communities are important in this movement, because you're right. It does take individuals making decisions about how they're living their lives, making changes to how we live. I mean, we just have to accept that the way that that it's normal to live now is not, it's not going to last. It's not sustainable. We can't, this was a period of time we thought we could do that, and we now know that we can't. So it's very difficult, as we've seen in the last couple of years. It's very difficult for people to make even small changes to their lifestyle or how they want to the convenience or how they're used to living. And so I think it has to be a collective effort. You do have to see other people doing it. You have to have your faith community saying this is a priority. This is something we're all going to do together for these reasons.
Yep.
To kind of spur people to make some of those changes that will collectively make a big difference.
Absolutely. I'm with you.
So you got things started at University Lutheran, and then how did you kind of start to pull other churches into that?
Well, our mandate was to assess the use of styrofoam within our congregation. And of course, that meant going through the pantry and getting rid of all the styrofoam. And the only styrofoam that you'll find in our church, if it's there at all, is when someone else comes in and uses the facility and leaves some styrofoam paper or styrofoam products. And so we use paper everywhere, and much of it is compostable paper, so that it makes it disappear faster in landfills and break down and not be another cause of pollution. But the second part of that was to reach out to other churches to see what they were doing that's green and see how we could collaborate with them in order to support each other. So when we have a big spring event, like we always do Earth Day in the park here in Norman, and we need shifts of people to work in our tent, other churches come and help us do that. And when they have a community garden that needs to be dug first thing in the spring, we can go and help them dig, take our shovels and walk and go help them. And so we made it a point to reach out to other churches that way. Also, the third prong of this is that we were mandated to be an educational source for other congregations or faith communities. And so what we decided was that quarterly we would hold a Green Speak event. And we would invite an expert in whatever, solar, wind, regenerative gardening, farming. We've had all kinds of visitors, everyone from how to make a water recycling tank that catches rainwater and you can use it for your garden or for any outdoor use. A rain barrel. And so we've done all kinds of things. And in doing that, we've invited all the churches. We've advertised it in the paper, and people can come to that, enjoy some nice refreshments, hear a program, meet other people who are interested in environmental issues. And through that, we have gained the support of other churches.
So when you say you were mandated, is that by your church council?
Well, we approached them with a plan, and they approved it. We said, we ought to clean up our own act first, then get in touch with other congregations and see what we can do as far as community-wide, because OU offers a great resource of all the people that they have there. And there's a constant supply of speakers. And so we just thought if we could offer that kind of program, that people in the community would like to come.
And so what was the actual process? Did you kind of have contacts at some other churches, or did you just start calling?
I had a few contacts, but nothing near like what we got by having our Green Speak programs.
Oh, okay.
At our Green Speak programs, people would sign in with their name, their faith community, and contact information. And we put together from that mailing list, and we send emails periodically announcing events. And I have probably 200 people or so on a mailing list.
Okay.
And, that's a good way to get out and get the word out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I found out about you all, I think through a Green Speak event. And then you started getting, I think I was on the mailing list and
yes, I think you still are.
Yes. And then following you once you got a Facebook page up and going.
Right.
That, which has been a great resource. I did love that article you just shared about from 1912.
Yes.
That was about being aware that using fossil or burning fossil fuels was going to create an issue with carbon dioxide.
Yeah, more than 100 years ago, we knew scientists were telling us we're doing the wrong thing, we're hurting our earth, we're going to kill ourselves. And yet, what happened?
That's incredible.
Yep.
So, who are some of the other churches in Churches Caring for Creation?
I know I'm going to leave someone out, so I'm going to apologize right off the bat. Initially, we began with St. Michael's Episcopal Church. We have First Christian, McFarland Methodist, First Presbyterian, the Congregational Church. St.
John's?
St. John's Episcopal, the St. Stephen's Methodist, and St. Joseph's Catholic Church, St. Mark's, and St. Thomas More. And I know I've left some out. I did not make a note for that. I've got a lot of other stuff around here.
Well, that's a lot. Those are all the biggies in Norman for sure.
And we're interested in gaining others too. So if you're listening to this or seeing this video, contact us. Let us know how we can draw you in, or give us some contact information so we can get you into the loop.
Okay. Were these other faith communities, did they already have some kind of a green committee or anything going, or?
Some absolutely nothing, and it's totally start from scratch. And others, their denominations had parameters that they wanted to stay within, but they definitely had the desire to be green and to be aware of the environmental benefits of working together to help the earth.
That's great. So maybe some of them did have something going on, but were able to sort of expand, and then others that didn't were able to kind of build that within their own communities, in addition to doing things collaboratively.
Yes.
That's so awesome. I mean, the hope is that this is sort of a model, that I see that could be replicated in a lot of different communities. Norman is just one community where I happen to live, but I'm sure this could be replicated, and maybe has been replicated in other communities as well, where you have it's also just a really great opportunity, of course, like to do some interfaith or ecumenical work that serves a lot of other purposes as well.
We give to everyone who comes in and donates styrofoam a handout like this, and it has information on both sides about why styrofoam is so bad for the environment, what happens to the styrofoam after we collect it, and a series of dates for future reference in other towns. We work in 7 different central Oklahoma communities and collect and densify at their local libraries through the Pioneer Library System. They're one of our collaborators. But we always are looking for others to include. And if we can give you a good way to start. And my phone number is on everything that we give away. And so daily I get phone calls from all over the United States, basically, because people move and keep their old telephone numbers. So it looks like somebody's calling me from New York, and my husband will say, well, that's probably just spam. And I said, well, no, I have to answer it. And so I call back, and sure enough, it's somebody that wants to bring a styrofoam and didn't know what the procedure was. So I have a lot of friends, and they call, and we have We have a cluster of churches in Oklahoma City that's interested in doing something together, but we just haven't hit the right mark for them to do that. Last Friday, we were in Midwest City at All Saints Lutheran, right near Tinker, and we densified their whole storage building full of styrofoam. We made 17 and a half logs. And by log, got to get by the jargon here.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness.
This is 4 feet long, and it weighs about 8 to 10 pounds, and it is drink cups, takeout containers, packaging styrofoam, and this is our commodity now. We measure in logs. Before we measured in 30-gallon bags, like in the background picture there. We were measuring in 30-gallon bags at that time. And now we're measuring per log. So we made 17 and a half of those out of all they've collected in the last 6 to 8 months. And so now we're reaching out to Midwest City and see if we can get some Midwest City activity going. And we see in trying to make our program sustainable, and that's a big deal, we see ourselves going toward not only just keeping our program going, but planting new programs around the city and in other towns. We go to Moore, Shawnee, Noble, Purcell, Blanchard, Newcastle, and South Oklahoma City, all in the Pioneer Library system. And that's where we densify 3 times a year. And everything that is brought on that particular morning, Saturday mornings from 10 until noon. And we're already scheduling for 2025.
So to back up a little bit, so styrofoam in Norman is not recyclable.
It is not.
And so that is a major, as we mentioned, it's people individually use a lot of styrofoam. And then I love, the other thing I love about faith communities being at the forefront of this is that they're organizations with a lot of people. They're feeding a lot of people. There's always food. If you have any kind of like a ministry, like if you're giving away food or whatever, or just even within your own congregation, it's a lot of packaging. It's a lot of materials. It's a lot of waste. Anytime you're running a program, there's going to be a lot of waste. I've struggled with that. Here, you want to do it inexpensively, and the least expensive choice is styrofoam.
Yep.
And so that's just like so much styrofoam. It's not recyclable. So you all saw a gap and decided to, out of all these, I think why people get overwhelmed too is that there's like, you have a green team or whatever. Well, what do you do with that? There's so many different things that you could do. Mm-hmm. I mean, actually, some of them are focusing on like disaster preparedness. Mm-hmm. is a component of being part of a green committee or whatever, because look at like Asheville, for example, like you need to be prepared for these disasters that keep happening due to climate change. So there's just so many different areas that you could do. But I love that you all just kind of focused in on what is this one particular need. And then you collect, and there's different locations around Norman where people can drop off their styrofoam. So like we collect at our house, we wash our styrofoam if we do end up with it. I very rarely, I will say, but my partner is not as, because he also is like, well, we recycle it. I'm like, well, it'd be a lot better if we just didn't use it. But so we do, and then you do see as it collects in our guest bath, you do see how much you do collect, even with us, who very, very conservation-minded household still collects quite a bit before we donate it. And then you also have, like my parents lived in a retirement community, and that's another place. My dad would say, you wouldn't believe the amount of styrofoam that this place uses. Mm-hmm. And so you had a donation thing at there as well, where they could wash and put their styrofoam in there. So, and then you invested in a densifier. Can you show us that picture?
Oh, the densifier, yes.
And tell us what that does.
There.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is about a 900-pound machine. It's mounted on a 12-foot trailer that we pull behind our truck. It is a gasoline engine, an 8 horsepower Honda like lawnmower engine, and through the top, oh geez, this is hard and it's backwards. This is the top of it. The lid opens up and you drop styrofoam into it, and it crushes it and tears it apart. It has fingers of death, I call it, because you don't want to get your hands near it. But it breaks up any size chunk of styrofoam that you stick in there, and it drops into the bottom of the machine where there's an auger that turns and pushes all the pieces toward the engine, which is down here. That's the engine right in there. And it pushes it toward the engine where it's hot. And the styrofoam goes into that chamber, heats up, and at that same time releases 95% of the volume of what you have put in, because styrofoam is 5% plastic and 95% air.
Whoa.
Yeah. So you can think that you're putting in a whole lot of styrofoam, but it may be a lot, but when it comes out in log form, it's not all that much. And so we currently have 20,000 pounds of styrofoam logs on pallets in storage here in Norman, not at the church, but here in Norman. And we are looking for a plastics buyer to buy it from us, and then they will resell it to a plastics manufacturer, and they will turn it into dollar store picture frames, crown molding, outdoor furniture, decking. And the most recent thing we heard is that the National Weather Service here in Norman has a drone that is made out of styrofoam, and they can hook heavy equipment on it, and the thing itself is fairly lightweight, and so it can, and they fly it up into thunderstorms to measure temperature, wind speed, and whatever else they want to measure. So that the densifier came to us through a grant by the philanthropic wing of the oil industry, the petroleum industry. And we found out about it after we had made many trips down south to recycle the styrofoam in Ada at the Dart Container Corporation there. And I learned about it, checked into it, and found I had 2 weeks to meet their deadline, and wrote a 13-page grant, provided pictures to show them what we'd been doing, like the pictures of all the bags in the background here, and bags of styrofoam in the background, and boxes, cartons. And we asked for $23,015 because that would take care of purchasing the densifier and a 12-foot trailer to mount it on so we could pull it to other locations. And in 10 days after submission, we received word that we had received the grant.
Wow.
And that was how we started. That's how we started densifying and moving from measuring in sacks, 30-gallon sacks for measurement, to how many pounds of logs we have created.
And so what are your volunteer kind of needs? You have densifier dudes.
We have densifier dudes and dudettes. The ladies can help too. There's nothing partial about that. And they work with us when we're actually doing the densifying. At other times, we need help in our styro station where all the styrofoam comes in, because first it has to be sorted into food service and packaging, because we have to mix food service and packaging appropriately to keep the temperature of the densifier at a correct level, that it will continue to melt the styrofoam when it's put into the machine. And so if we want to heat it up, we add more food service, because food service is denser than packaging foam. If we need to cool it down, we start putting in more packaging. And so we have to separate the two. And we also in that we sort out all of the black takeout containers, and they go through one of our volunteers from St. Joseph's Catholic Church, has property in Ada that he checks every couple of weeks. He comes by before he goes and loads up his truck with all of our black styrofoam, because it turns to bubble gum essentially inside the machine. It doesn't set up and densify. It just gets sticky and gooey, and it leaves black residue inside the machine. So then when you run a load of white through, it comes out zebra striped, and it's just a mess. So we just find it easier to, we'll take the black, sure, but we sort it out and send it someplace else. And then we also separate colorful styrofoam, like meat packing trays, or you'll find grapes in the summertime on green trays that's under cellophane. And so we separate color, and that includes cups that have ink on them from the various fast food places. And so those all go together. And so we have 4 bins. We have mixed color, black, all white food service, and all white packaging foam. And that all has to happen, and we need volunteers to help with it. It's not a big deal. The washing of it, it takes time, and we do, in the sorting end of it, sort out anything that is nasty or anything that may have mold on it because they left it sitting in their garage for 6 months before they decided to recycle. And so we throw that away. And so it's washing dishes in a beautiful, brightly lit commercial kitchen and leaning them over so they dry. And we just have volunteers that do that. We save egg cartons. Last week, we gave to our poultry partners, people who raise chickens in order to sell their eggs, 840 egg cartons. And we had gotten that many egg cartons in about 5 weeks.
Wow.
So we just get egg cartons like you can't believe it. I don't know who's making all those omelets, but I'd like to be invited. But anyway, we sack them up in the paper bags that so many people bring us their recycling in. We reuse everything that we possibly can. And so all of our egg cartons get stacked in the sacks. Hang on just a second. There we go. Mm-hmm. Oh, see all those sacks? Mm-hmm. And we count them when we put them in the sacks, so we know how many we're giving away. We write it on the outside of the bags, and our Cynthia and Mike come and take them away, and they fill a whole truck bed, single layer, with egg cartons in sacks. All the big bags that we get, like big leaf bags, especially the heavy duty black bags, we put about 6 or 8 of those together, roll them up in a nice convenient roll that's not much larger than a roll of paper towels, and we put our advertising on it with rubber bands saying come by and bring us your styrofoam. And then we call those bag bundles, and we send them out with anybody who wants them to keep in their car. And then when they see a lawn maintenance service using black bags to bag up clippings or leaves, just hold them out the window and say, would you like some free black bags? And everybody says yes, and they can use them. They don't care whether they're 3 or 4 little crumbs of styrofoam in the bottom of them, but we've found a way to reuse plastic. And that's the whole deal. Reuse egg cartons, reuse the plastic bags, reuse the paper bags to hold the egg cartons that we get. And we're just very circular about making sure that everything that we get, we find a second use for.
Mm-hmm. And then that process makes everybody who works with that aware then of what you're consuming, what you're buying, and
yes.
What are the decisions that you're making. I mean, often I will go with the type of egg because eggs are like, who can keep track? We did an eco chat on food, and both of us, my guests and I, agreed that the egg situation is undecipherable with the cage free or the free range and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, I make decision based on it. Is the egg carton not styrofoam? Because I will pick the one that has a non-styrofoam.
Our poultry partners prefer actually the paper mache type. That is their preference for their chickens. But we do half dozen, 1 dozen, dozen and a half, 2 dozen, and 4 dozen. All we recycle all of those to these people, whether they are paper, whether they are plastic, or styrofoam. And we're getting a second use out of all of them, and that's what we need to do.
So all these volunteer needs, those are volunteers that are from like any of your partner churches.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. Then you also, it sounds like it's kind of a network that you can pull, any one of them can pull from, like you said, if one of them has a community garden or something like that.
We are in the process of, when the whole sustainability question came up, it came up at our church council. Like, there are a few of us that are highly involved in this whole program. And my husband, for one, driving the truck that pulls the densifier, had an illness earlier this year, and he had to be out for a couple of weeks. And it really slowed us down. And everybody started saying, well, what happens if something happens to you? What happens if something happens to both of you? And we're left sitting here with all the styrofoam stuff. We've got to diversify this somewhat more. And we've found many really good partners in our other faith community, churches and synagogues and fellowships and things like that, people who are really willing to step up and get involved once they knew that there was a problem. But we're consciously building now teams, densifier, dude, and dudette teams from the churches that we are currently involved with. They're coming up with 3 or 4 people who'd like to work together on a project periodically. We don't ask them to work every month, but maybe every 5 weeks we'll call on them to go to one of the densifying events with us to give the University Lutheran people who have devoted time a break, because it's just too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
That's why I think, especially as a lot of faith communities are resources and people are really stretched thin right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so this sort of collaborative nature is really exciting and much more sustainable.
And the people that they're recruiting to work with us are excited about doing it. I'm amazed and excited that they are so happy. They show up and they say, hey, this is something we haven't done in 5 weeks. Let's do it. Let's do a really good job. Or let's have some fun while we're doing it. And it's just great. And when you look at 7 locations in central Oklahoma that we go to 3 times a year on Saturday mornings, that's 21 Saturday mornings that we are committed. That's half a year's worth of Saturdays that we're committed to being someplace other than doing what we could be doing at our own church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sure it feels good to be part of the solution too, and with other people who are doing stuff.
Yep.
Especially when you get that sort of climate change fatigue or anxiety, that I think that's a good way to combat that.
Mm-hmm.
What are some challenges that you experienced kind of pulling all these things together? And what advice would you offer to other people who might be trying to put something like this together too?
Communication is really important, and making sure that you have a clear chain of uh, responsibility. Uh, my husband, for instance, is the chief densifier dude. He has the truck, he gets the trailer, they do maintenance. He and several other men from University Lutheran do the maintenance for the densifier. And so they make their decisions in their area. I kind of take responsibility for the styro station, which is the large room at our church, and getting it organized and keeping our educational wall updated, and making contacts with potential buyers for the foam. So we have really specific areas that we um, take responsibility for. And then I have people that work with me, and Doug has people who work with him. And that initially, um, that initially was a real benefit if you can get specific early enough in the process. We got into styrofoam when Goodwill stopped taking it here in Norman. Apparently, at one time they had a densifier. I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't recycling styrofoam then, but they it was a big announcement that they would no longer take styrofoam. Mm-hmm. And our green team was at the point of saying, okay, we do our educational stuff. We've done a survey within our own congregation. We're doing Green Speak events. We could probably need to do something actively. What could we take this over, and could we step in where Goodwill had been? And that's how we got into styrofoam, really.
Okay. What are some successes you've had in terms of that kind of partnership aspect to it? You know, you're working with, you know, you are working across different faith traditions, and like you said, there are some restrictions that I guess some of them had to follow.
Oh, I'd like to mention the fact that I'm a master gardener, and I brought this up when we were first getting started with the styrofoam recycling. I brought it up at a master gardener meeting, and we have probably 50 to 70 people at a monthly meeting, and they all decided that they would like to bring their styrofoam to master gardener meetings. So every master gardener meeting, I come home with my RAV4 loaded to the ceiling and pushing the doors more or less bulging out with styrofoam. And getting other organizations involved is a real benefit. So master gardeners support us. We had a telephone call about 8 months in when we first started collecting from a gentleman. Didn't know him, and he said, I was in today and I'm really impressed. You guys you're getting this going. Is it gonna go? Do you think you can make it work? And I said, well, we're gonna give it a good try. 10 months later, he called again, and he said, I was in the styro station today, and there was styrofoam to the ceiling on that table where the packaging foam was. He said, are you going to do something with it? And I said, well, yeah, we're going to be densifying pretty soon, and this weekend, as a matter of fact. And he said, well, that's great. I'd really like to help you in some way. And of course, to every volunteer, when you hear, I would like to help you in some way, you think either, come up with some cash or some time and effort or whatever. And he said, what are you looking for? And I said, at that time, we were looking for storage area to store the logs, because they degrade just like your brand new early in the spring yard furniture looks all shiny and beautiful, but by this time of the year, it's coming off on your fingers and it's not shiny anymore, it's dull. And I said, we need indoor storage for our logs that are put on 4-foot pallets and wrapped in plastic to hold everything together. And he said, oh, that's no problem. I have 3 warehouses. And I said, you do? And he said, sure, you're welcome. I'll set you up with the supervisor out there, and he'll let you, he'll come out and give you a tour and show you where your phone can sit. And of course, at that point, I said, oh, geez, that's a warehouse. I said, we're not for profit. We don't have any money to spend on storage. I'm sorry. And he said, oh, I don't want your money. I want to help you.
Oh.
And so we've been with them for year and a half, 2 years, as a matter of fact. And so the guys are taking out a load tomorrow on a flatbed trailer and adding to our stash that will be picked up by the broker who buys the plastic, and then they deliver it to a plastics manufacturer, and the plastics manufacturer grinds up our logs into stuff that looks like ice melt or rock salt, and put emulsion with it, turn it back into a liquid substance, a liquid form of styrofoam, and then push it through their extruders to make the sides of picture frames, or crown molding, or outdoor furniture pieces, or decking. So it's just, this whole thing is a God deal. It's God's project. It's not ours. He's just used us, used our hands, and used our work to make this go, because there's so many things just like that I could tell you that have happened that are beyond coincidental. They're God incidences, and that's God giving us a little shove in the right direction. We are so grateful.
Well, thank you so much for your work and for kind of being a leader. Because that's, I mean, it's, you kind of look around and say someone should do something about this, and you're somebody.
Yeah,
we're all somebody. So it's going to take all of us kind of doing some little part to turn this ship around.
You're never too old to grasp your passion and run with it. You're never too old. I've been retired for probably 10 or 12 years, and 12 or 14 years, and never would have thought I'd be in so deeply in this volunteerism that it's like having another job. But it's great, and it's helping the world, and it's what we're supposed to be doing. So
yes,
I'm happy.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I think it's really inspirational, and it's just like a great example of what a group of people can do when they set their mind to it and care passionately. And I really believe that faith communities really are the ones that should be at the forefront of all this.
Amen.
And walking the walk, and leading by example. So really appreciate you sharing what you all have been able to accomplish.
Can I show you one other thing just real quickly? People should know what styrofoam is and isn't. Styrofoam is your takeout containers. Styrofoam does not bend or contort. This is that soft stuff that's used in packaging. And you see that it bends and goes back to its original shape. Mm-hmm. It's not this stuff. Oh, it doesn't show up very well. This looks like styrofoam, but it's slick. Styrofoam isn't shiny. This is slick. You'll find styrofoam everywhere. Inside your bicycle helmets. We got this recycled not too long ago. I think that's
interesting.
Yeah. I'm using it when I do Mrs. Foam in classrooms. We go out and do programs for kids. And so that's Mrs. Foam's hat. And this isn't styrofoam, this flexible stuff. The bottom line is styrofoam snaps. Don't bring us this other stuff. We just have to throw it away.
Okay. And clean it. Make sure it's clean.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Clean, clean, clean. Absolutely.
Which is true of all recycling.
Yes. Pickle jars to whatever, peanut butter jars. Everything needs to be clean when you recycle it.
Yeah, we'll have a whole different program, I think, on recycling, because that is a whole other
follow wax.
Yes.
So, thank you so much for inviting us to do this.
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled. I've been following you all for, I mean, I don't know when you all got started, but it seems like it was a long time ago, 10, 15 years ago.
Around 2018.
Oh, really? I thought, like, didn't you have Green Speak events before then?
Nope, not before then.
Hmm.
No. But we always invite people to look for us on Facebook at University Lutheran Church and Student Center. That's one page. Or you can catch us at Churches Caring for Creation. And we try to put green stuff on there regularly and develop a nice group of people following that too.
Yeah, it's good information sharing and event sharing. And I'll put all that info in the description for the.
Wonderful. Great.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank you, Kat. Enjoyed it.